Good evening. Tonight's Friday Night Fights coming to you from Tacoma, Washington, about 30 miles south of Seattle, where everybody awaits the Seahawks taking on the Saints in the divisional playoffs. Friday Night Fights is brought to you by Corona Extra. And tonight, we've got a triple header of action, starting off with the 6th round heavyweight bout. Jonte Willis, who is fighting for the 8th time in Washington, is the father of 2 one-year-olds, a son and a daughter. He said Papa was a Rolling Stone about 2 years ago, and he is the cousin of NFL linebacker Patrick Willis of the 49ers. He will be taking on former cruiserweight Lateef Kayode, who's fighting as a heavyweight for the 2nd time. He was born in Nigeria but moved to the U.S. in 2007. He was trained by Freddie Roach, the 4-time trainer of the year, who was actually in Tijuana with Tony DeMarco in a title fight. And his no decision against Antonio Tarver was overturned when Tarver tested positive for steroids. In the center of the ring, we're ready for our first fight between Lateef Kayode and Jonte Willis.
Let's do it.
Rick, watch those trucks a little bit.
Yeah.
6th-round fight. Lateef Kayode fighting out of Hollywood via Nigeria, 19-0 with 15 knockouts. Jonte Willis, 9-7-1, who says he is not the fighter his record indicates.
Well, like Bill Parcells, you're talking about football coming up, especially around here with the Seattle Seahawks. As you mentioned, Bill Parcells always said it, you are what your record says you are. Willis lost 3 in a row, and he's lost 6 of his last 7. Right now, he's an opponent. He's got a chance now to prove otherwise. I think it's going to be difficult.
Lateef Kayode has the reach advantage. He says at heavyweight, where he started his career with his first 10 fights early on, then moved to cruiserweight, he said he lost some of his power at under 200 pounds, but there he lands a beautiful right hand.
Kayode's been in there with the much better opposition. Sometimes you see a heavyweight at 30 years of age, 19-0, you say, well, you know, it's been all liquid diet. But no, he's been feasting on, or at least chewing on the bones of some pretty good fighters.
Get the arm out. Get the arm out. Get that arm out.
He has fought, as I said, much higher level than Willis.
Willis with 2 right hands, not doing much to Lateef Kayode early on. Lateef talked about Freddie Roach. He said he's not here with me because he's at a title fight, but nonetheless, he worked with him a lot at the gym. He worked on his defense, moving his head, and different aspects. And sometimes being in the gym and getting that time can be a lot more valuable than being in the corner.
Both these fighters, you alluded to it, have gotten bigger, heavier. Willis, in his 2nd pro bout, he was 206. Last fight, 228. Tonight, 219 1/4, took off 8 3/4 pounds in 2 months. Kayode made that giant jump in weight. Weeks ago he weighed, well, he was a cruiserweight, 199. Then he took a 1.5 years off, and then he came back. Obviously, he wasn't around any salad bars. He came back at 216, 17 pounds he put on. Tonight, Kayode 222, the heaviest of his career, 6 more than he was in his last fight.
Nice right there by Willis, but Kayode going to the body said that was going to be the key tonight, working the body against Jonte Willis, a fighter who has been hurt previously in other fights. I remind you that you can vote on Facebook and give us your score for this first round of the Lateef Kayode against Jonte Willis fight. You'll have a chance to go head-to-head with Teddy Atlas and his scorecard.
5 seconds.
Shoe shine there, as Teddy would say, by Willis at the end of his first round. Our main event was supposed to feature Arash Usmani, who hurt his ankle and had to pull out of the fight. Yenifel Vicente took the fight on 4 days' notice, and he will be taking on Mexican southpaw Juan Antonio Rodriguez, who's making his first fight in the U.S.
Look, the bad news is we lost half of our main event, as you just said, and that half, Usmani, good fighter, world-level fighter, and more importantly, you guys like him. He comes at you. Good news, you knew I'd come with you with some good news. For Jonte's replacement, a guy that comes at you, TV friendly. Guy who's in your grill, and he's fighting a fighter in Rodriguez who also comes at you. Rodriguez will mix it up a little bit, he can use his legs, but at the end of the day, he engages you. He's there to fight. Should be a good one.
And Teddy Atlas, always a glass half full, as opposed to glass half empty, as we're ready.
Not always, not always.
Not when it comes to judges, right?
There's plenty of times there's been water leaking all over my table over here.
Hopefully none of that going on tonight, as Lateef Kayode looks to pressure Jonte Willis, who's really wants to get away from this bad skid he's on. 2-7-1 his last 10 fights. Lateef 9-0 with 1 no decision and 6 knockouts in his last 10. Different backgrounds for these two fighters.
You know, Kayode was honest. I always like a guy that's honest. We always try to do that. I think it's going to be a bad fight. I'm telling you, hey, it's going to be a bad fight. Think it's going to be a good fight? I'll tell you. I want the fans to be able to believe me. I like a fighter who tells you straight. Kayode said that in the Tarver fight, the former world champion, Antonio Tarver, that he was too careful, should have been more aggressive. To me, what does that translate to, Bernardo? To me, as a trainer, it means he was too respectful and he was a little intimidated.
It was a big stage out there in Carson, California, one of the best venues to watch a fight nowadays, and it was a very close fight. One judge gave it to each of the fighters, and the other one saw it a draw. And Lateef Kayode said he felt he deserved to win, as he gets tagged with a nice left hook by Jonte Willis, but not doing much damage as a fighter out of Washington.
Yeah, Kayode blocked most of those punches, but to your point, he does give you opportunities, Bernardo. He puts those earmuffs on, goes into that peekaboo. And when he does that, opportunity for the opponent, right now the opponent, Willis, to become a non-opponent.
Willis incorporates MMA training into his regimen. He says that...
You want him to tackle?
No, none of that. Plus, he was a former football player, so we'll have none of that tonight. But what he did say is that it helps him to throw shorter punches. Let's see if he's actually executing that against the longer Lateef Kayode.
See, I would think the opposite. To me, the MMA guys, I have all the respect in the world. What tough son of a guns they are. But they're a little crude when it comes to their striking skills, as they like to call the standing up and throwing. They're a little fat with their punches sometimes.
Yeah, they get a little wide, but Lateef connecting with solid right hands is, we see activity from Jonte, but maybe not very effective. On the break, he's hit by Lateef Kayode, and they say protect yourself at all times.
Come on, we gotta go.
He's taken to the neutral corner.
I'm gonna guess that he did more acting, Mr. Willis, right there, than actual pain, or actually being semi-conscious, or as hurt as he tried to make believe. He wanted to get the referee to react and be on his side. Referee didn't go for it.
Coming to the end of round 2, and we go now to Todd Grisham at the Friday Night Fights studio.
Thank you, Bernardo. What a shock right out of the gate last week on our season premiere of Friday Night Fights. We're knee-deep in controversy. Rancis Barthelemy knocking out Argenis Mendez after the bell, mind you, to win a championship. Coming up, we'll find out what steps Mendez is taking to have the ruling overturned so he can get his title back. And Hall of Fame referee Joe Cortez will tell us why the knockout never should have happened. Also on tonight's show, a huge announcement regarding Adrian Broner's next fight. Plus, Dan Rayfield will tell us who Manny Pacquiao has narrowed down his possible opponents to. It looks like it's down to just 2. Make sure and be a part of the program. You can reach out to me on Twitter at Grisham ESPN. Also, longtime Ring Magazine editor Nigel Collins is at ESPN FNF. And don't forget to score tonight's fights using our Facebook app. You can find it on our Friday Night Fights Facebook page. That'll do it for here for now. Let's send it back out to Tacoma. Bernardo and Teddy with round 3.
Maybe listen.
Thank you, Todd. We got a lot to talk about, including what just happened with the Nevada State Athletic Commission. Todd Grisham and Dan Rayfield will get in depth as to what's going on in Las Vegas. Round 3 of a 6-round heavyweight attraction. Lateef Kayode in the green and white trunks from Nigeria, fighting out of Hollywood, California, taking on Jonte Willis, now from Tacoma, originally from Atlanta, Georgia.
The fight plan is pretty simple so far. Kayode, bigger, stronger, more confident, trying to be the boss. Walking forward behind the jab, but that time a wide left hook. And that wide left hook, that's the opportunity for an underdog, an opponent, like I said, like Willis, to sneak a right hand in there, but you have to have the intent to do it. The opportunity's there, but the intent, the desire to take the chance to step in with the punch has to be there.
Jonte Willis talked about early shoulder injuries in his career that derailed the early part of his career. He said he's not at 100% still. He'll have to get shoulder surgery sometime soon. It doesn't look like he has any problems so far. But Lateef Kayode not really taking advantage of his height and his length here against Willis early on.
And Willis, as I said a moment ago, not taking advantage of sometimes those wide shots. There's a wide right now from the undefeated Kayode. And the reason he's not taking advantage, believe me, he knows how to do it at this point in his career. After 17 fights, this is his 18th fight. But he doesn't have the mentality. He's got to lose his mentality. An opponent's mentality, not a winning mentality. A winning mentality, you take chances. An opponent mentality, you survive. I want to survive. I want to live. And there he snuck the right hand in there. See, there's the opportunity for that right hand in between those fat shots of Kayode.
And a solid jab from Lateef Kayode, but then he takes a nice right from Jonte Willis, who seems to finally be finding a rhythm, a good distance here after 3 rounds of action. Got a big guy in front of him in Lateef Kayode.
Again, Kayode bigger and stronger, but flawed. And opportunities for Willis, maybe, to come out of that opponent mentality. If he could sneak a couple right hands in there, in between those fat shots, as he did a moment ago.
Kayode not as active as we're used to seeing him. He's used to outlanding his opponents, and here he just doesn't seem to be comfortable. Hasn't found the right distance, although there he lands with a good jab.
If I'm Willis, I'm going to dare Kayode. I know that sounds like you're standing on the cliff waiting to fall off. I'm going to dare him to throw something, and then throw something right down the middle.
Eddie Allison, halfway through the fight.
If you're an underdog, all you want is a chance. Here's a chance for Willis, but he misses it. He comes up short with the right hand, but the opportunity, the point is, the opportunity is there. Kayode, yes, he's 19-0. Yes, he's bigger. Yes, he's stronger, but yes, he's flawed. He throws those wide shots, gives you a chance to step in, Bernardo, with something straight and true, but it comes down to Willis. Even there, the lack of confidence, the mentality of an opponent, he came up a little short.
We'll take a look at Teddy's scorecard through 3 rounds. Shutout in favor of Lateef Kayode. And you also have a voice here on Friday Night Fights via Facebook, and the viewer scorecard is in agreement so far with Teddy, although I see 66-34 in favor of Willis there in the first round. They also see an opponent instead of a man looking to win here tonight, Teddy.
You see a guy who's getting hit more than the other guy.
But isn't this a fight that Lateef Kayode should be dominating more clearly?
If you believe the 19-0. You know, I've been around boxing almost 40 years. I don't necessarily believe records at first blush when I see them. I want to see proof inside that ring. You know, it's kind of like you go to Macy's window around Christmas time. You see a beautiful display window. But what do they have in inventory? What's in the stock room? What's in the warehouse? Sometimes it's not there. Same thing with a record. Yeah, you see a beautiful record, 19-0. But now we're getting the first chance to see proof of that record. And you're seeing a lot of the shortcomings of Kayode.
Coming up next, the junior welterweight attraction, the return of Zahir Rahim against Bayan Jargal in a 10-round fight. And our main event features Yenifel Vicente taking on Juan Antonio Rodriguez as Lateef Kayode starts to do damage to the body here in the 4th round. A barrage of punches as his opponent, Jonte Willis, does not throw anything in response.
Stop!
Willis has, to your point, Willis has been knocked out 2 times. So if Kayode wants to be believed as one of the newcomers, one of the guys to take serious as an American heavyweight, a fighter that's fighting over here in America that wants to be believed as a prospect in the heavyweight division, he probably needs to do what those 2 fighters did to Willis. Get him out of here.
But sometimes the best way to get a shot is to be vulnerable, and Lateef is quite vulnerable to different things in the ring. But you've got to back up what you've got on your record, and you mentioned that very clearly, Teddy, as we saw how the Velcro on the shoes of Jonte Willis got undone. He got some time to recover from the referee. A little bit of gamesmanship there from the corner. It's a 6-round fight. Round 4 comes to an end at the Emerald Queen in Tacoma, Washington. ESPN's Friday Night Fights is presented by Corona Extra, who invites you to find your beach. Today, the LeMay America's Car Museum, the largest vintage car museum in North America, located right here in Tacoma next to the Tacoma Dome, will be home to Teddy's fight plan. You don't want to miss as Teddy gets his engine revved up.
And Saul, it's not true that Saul stole one of those cars. Not true. The replay right there, you see some work from Kayode into the body. A little bit of a soft body. And when you have a guy trying to survive like Willis, an opponent moving his head, not taking chances, going to the body, pretty good idea.
Lateef Kayode finally saw in round 4 how effective his jab was. He's starting to use it a lot more here in the early moments of round 5. When you follow it up with a right, it's always a good thing as Kayode finds his rhythm finally.
You set the table with the left. You're right, Bernardo. And then you look to eat, usually with the right. If I was in the corner, Kayode, I would have had them watching George Foreman and Joe Frazier, because to me, that's what should be taking place here. Kayode, like Foreman, a lot bigger than Frazier. And he's got that stiff, you know, just that heavy jab to really discombobulate you the way that Foreman did with Frazier. Hit him with that heavy jab, that hard jab, that ramrod jab, and then look to set up the shots off of that. Maybe even the uppercut with the shorter man.
And that's exactly what he did moments ago. Triple jab and then went with the uppercut. Leaves that right open for his opponent as we take a look at the punch. That same amount thrown, but 16 more landed for Lateef Kayode. A paltry 6% landed from Willis, and he lands another right as Lateef Kayode starts to hurt him here in the 5th round.
No push, no push.
Warning for pushing there from the 3rd man in the ring, but the demeanor of Jonte Willis tells you that the fight is now fully in Kayode's hands.
I think that told you from the beginning. Willis behaved like an opponent. You know, a guy who's concentrating a little bit more on surviving than on really going forward for the win. I mean, he had thrown back, but he had thrown back after he's been thrown at. In other words, to survive, to last.
Pants saying no mercy on Lateef Kayode, but they're both showing the bolo punch, but there's nothing behind it until Lateef finally throws that jab, follows it up with a right, and he's got Willis up against the ropes, and that's the worst place for Jonte Willis.
You know, Bernardo, I like straight punches, and I criticize Kayode for throwing a couple wide ones. Lately, he's been throwing straight right hands. I'd like to see a little bit of a crooked one. I'll tell you why. Willis, when he puts those earbuds on, the opening is really not straight ahead. It's around the glove. And that's where Kayode can be effective.
Right behind the ear, very hard to recover. Or the jaw, just like that, will also work for Lateef Kayode as Willis looks to get out of this 5th round. We'll be right back on Friday Night Fights.
You know, it's not always about a punch, it's about the delivery system. There, the delivery system by Cody was around the glove, the right delivery system. Now it's straight down the middle because it called for that, the right delivery system. No different than the quarterbacks you're going to see during the weekend. That sometimes the big linemen in front of them, they can't throw it overhead. They have to adjust the trajectory of the pass and take the angle of their arm off a little bit, maybe to the side. That's what Kayode did there, landing those two different right hands.
And staying with the NFL or the football analogies, Jonte Willis is the cousin of NFL linebacker Patrick Willis. He's going to need a bum rush here against Lateef Kayode if he's going to stay in this fight, because Lateef has utterly dominated this fight. Maybe not looking as clean early on, but now we're starting to see him use his distance. And all those things you mentioned, Teddy, puts him at a 5-0 advantage here on your scorecard, and the viewers see it as a 4-1 advantage with that first round going to Willis, and Lateef Kayode going to work with that left and that right as his opponent turns his back to him, and it's a knockout, a technical knockout in round 6. He didn't throw punches, he didn't keep his eyes on his opponent, and he paid the price.
He was surviving until he didn't survive anymore, which is what happens sometimes when you commit to that mentality, to that mode of thinking. You give your opponent many chances to get on you. To the credit of Kayode, there could be a lot of people that are critical of his performance a little bit, saying maybe in some ways you saw some of the flaws, some of the warts in it. Maybe he got exposed maybe as a true contender in some ways, but I'll give him credit. He knew it was the last round, he wanted a knockout, and he put forward that thought and that effort, and he got that result. Here it is, comes right out at the bell, jumping all over Willis, who went defensive. You know, he's going to make an argument and shouldn't have been stopped. I see that argument. He's still okay. You know, he's still cognizant of what's going on, but I also see why the referee stopped this fight when there's nothing coming back. And Kayode's going to continue letting those hands go.
10 unanswered punches. At that point, his corner was already on the apron, but it was a left hook that did the damage, and he just kept following it up. Nothing too clean, but the accumulation of punches, the fact that he wasn't really looking at his opponent, and that's what ends up costing him the fight here from the Emerald Queen Casino in Tacoma, Washington. We take you into the ring with Kenny Davis and the official time.
Ladies and gentlemen, the fight ends at 1 minute 7 seconds of round number 6. For your winner via TKO, Lateef Power Kayode.
Some of the fans not too happy, and that's because Jonte Willis was fighting for the 8th time here in Washington, but Lateef Kayode improves to 20-0 and 16 of those victories by knockout. We'll be back with more Friday Night Fights as Rahim takes him by Jargo and the studio.